Hey guys, it's M4J here and welcome back to Global Ventures in Planet Coaster. And boy, have I got some stuff to update you on. So, as is the case with all the videos on my channel now, we have ourselves a to-do list. Today's to-do list is only 2 items long, but I imagine it's going to take quite a long time to actually complete them. We also have some conversation topics and for some reason I've decided to put conversation topics under episode title as well, but there you go. The episode title is called Making It Work, because that's exactly what we're going to try and do. We're going to try and make this work, because I'm still not 100% happy with the layout of what used to be called Curse of the Fort. It's now called Raid of the Fort, because I thought Curse doesn't exactly sound quite right for what we're trying to do here. So it's now called Raid of the Fort. The idea is you go into the dark ride section, which as you see I've now covered up to try and create a bit more of a dark ride feeling behind it. It does mean that we get some interesting effects, like over here for example. In fact, if I can find a train that's just about to go through the dark ride section. Let's go from train 4. But this part of the ride here that we're watching now is the bit that I'm not so keen on. I think the volcano itself is very good. I think the ride needs to interact with it slightly differently. As you can see here, some of the colouring in the tunnel is a bit off as well, so I might need to go through and change that. Just realised how loud that is in my headphones. Hopefully it's not too loud in the finished video. As you can see, here we are now inside the new, well I say new, it's the same old dark ride section, it's just been given the cavern effect. I do quite like the way that the cavern invades the ceiling of the building. I think that looks quite cool. The lighting still isn't great, it's still a bit too bright for my liking, and there's no effect as you go past the lights. It's almost like they're on the whole time and you don't actually see them switch on, which is a little bit irritating, but I suppose you can't help that too much at this point. This is the bit really where you can see the darkness coming into effect. That lamp there really does make a difference. And in fact, as we do the right-hander into the treasure room, you can see again that it does make quite a big difference when the fairy lights turn on. There you go. So this bit actually looks a lot nicer now. It looks like a hidden treasure room with a big statue at the end here as well. You'll have to forgive me if I keep sniffing. For some reason I've woken up really bunged up this morning. Hopefully I'm not coming down with a cold or anything, because that would be a bit annoying in mid-June, coming down with a cold. But you know, I do tend to suffer from things like that, unfortunately. So that's the new dark ride section of Raid. From the outside it looks a bit ugly, but we can theme it and make it work. You might have seen a bit of track just in the bottom of the screen here. I'll come back to that in just a second. So the reason this episode is called Making It Work is because that is pretty much what we're going to do. I'm not that happy with the layout here. I think the continuous right-hander here, it works on things like spinning coasters, let's say, but I don't think it works too much on junior coasters. But we're going to make it work, because not every coaster has a perfect layout. Some coasters have layouts which some people don't like. And, you know, that's by the by, it happens. But talking of spinning coasters, let me introduce you to this. Now this is something I am really pleased with. So a couple of nights ago, I was up at sort of 2 AM, couldn't really sleep. And I thought, let's utilise this time, instead of just not doing anything and, you know, getting irritated, why don't I use it for something good? So I sat down at my desk and I thought I'd practice building roller coasters, because that is something, as I say, I'm not happy with the layout of Raid, and one of the reasons behind it is because I'm not very experienced at building rides in this game still. So I thought I'd try my hand at actually building some practice rides, some of which I've saved, some of which will be used later on in the park, and this is one of them. So as you know, I'm building an Egyptian themed area of the park. It's going to be called Valley of the Nile, and it's going to be situated, if I zoom out, it's going to be situated over in this section of the park over here. So the river, the Nile, will run straight through the centre. This bit here needs a bit of improving whilst I'm looking at it. This bit here should not be underwater. There we go. Makes that look a little bit nicer. Fill that bit in there as well. Awesome. So this is the one of the signature rides of the Egyptian area. This roller coaster is called Scarab. For those of you who don't know, scarabs are little beetle-like creatures that are well known in I imagine they appeared in The Mummy. I have to admit, I've never actually seen it. But I know if you go on the Mummy ride at the Universal Park, scarabs feature quite heavily. There's a bit in one of them, I think it's the Florida one, where you come to a dead end before you start going backwards, and loads of creatures come down the wall. They're scarab beetles. So obviously Scarab fits quite nicely. They're little cars. They look a little bit of resemblance to a beetle, so I thought that was quite a fitting name. This ride I am really pleased with. It's actually been through several iterations, and I wish I'd kept the blueprints from the first couple of versions. But I've actually managed to build a spinning coaster that works. Not just works in the case of actually the cars spin, but also works in the case of the spacing between cars. You see, this car just about clears the block before this one comes in. Sometimes there is a bit of a wait here. It's not too bad. It doesn't affect the ride too much. There's only, I think it's 5 cars that operate on the coaster, but they come through pretty quickly, so throughput on the ride should actually be quite good. Now, I'm a big fan of spinning coasters. I've been on 2. Spinball Whizzer, or Sonic Spinball, I can't actually remember what it's called these days. I think it's gone back to Spinball Whizzer. At Alton Towers, and Dragon's Fury at Chesington. Now, I admit they're not the most extreme versions of these rides. There are more extreme versions. The Windjass rides at Phantasialand, they are more extreme, I would say. And then some of the ones in America are also more extreme, as is the case with American theme parks. But I'm really happy with this one. And whenever I build a spinning coaster, and I say that very lightly because I don't build many, No Limits and this is the only time really where I've built spinning coasters, but I have to have the vertical hairpin. That for me is a must in any spinning coaster. If you don't build one of these, then you have not built a spinning coaster. And in fact, I like them so much that I've built 3. There's one here and there's also one here. They're not quite as extreme. This one doesn't go fully vertical. This one kind of does. It goes to 90 degrees here, but not at the top. And the other thing I wanted, Dragon's Fury I do like at Chesington, but I feel like the first drop is a bit too early in the ride, which sounds a bit weird, but I like the way that the Spinball at Alton Towers, you have this like little pre-drop section first to kind of get you in the mood for the spinning and sort of get you accustomed to what's going to happen. So I built one of these here as well. Now, in the actual Egyptian area, the whole area, I hope, is going to be built inside a giant pyramid structure. So this is going to be really up close to the roof. But there's going to be like a little townscape going on at the back of the area. Kind of like a facade to hide the back of the building. This is going to interact, hopefully. Again, I'm saying this all speculatively. It could end up being nothing like I envisioned. But this is hopefully going to interact with that little back area. So it will explain why the track is so high at this point. It's not just been done for, you know, pre-drops or anything like that. There's going to be some scenery going on around this ride as well. That being said, we will do a POV of this in a second before we get starting on the actual episode. But I really like this first big drop as well. I think it really does get the car spinning, ready for the big hairpin. Now, this is inspired by Dragon's Fury. It has a drop very similar to this, where the car itself doesn't spin too much on this section, but you get a lot of G-force. I mean, you'd think how steep that is. This isn't a kid's ride by any stretch of the imagination. Once again, I feel like the rating system on this game is a little bit off. So I feel like this would be quite an extreme ride in real life. But it doesn't quite hit the criteria that the game requires in order to give it an extreme rating. So I feel like it's a little bit lacking in that respect. But as I say, the must-have hairpin here. There's a little bit of a banking issue here, but I used the smoothing to get that. So actually, I think it's okay. And I really like the way that the car does spin there. And then the rising helix here as well gets some spin going. Apart from that, we've got a little bit of an airtime hill here. Again, we've got a big sweeping drop going into that airtime. Another helix. Helix is very important in spinning rides, I've noticed. And again, I with all of my series, and you should know this by now if you watch these videos regularly, I do a lot of research. So I do watch a lot of roller coaster videos on YouTube. I also do a lot of reading about design. I tend to look at designs that have failed, mostly, because they're the ones that I always think, why did they fail? Why couldn't they not be made possible? And sometimes it's worth visiting those instances, because you might find a way around it in a game like this. Right, let's ride Scarab, shall we? Let's get the car... Yeah, this is good. Let's do a proper front POV, because even I haven't done a proper front POV yet. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this goes. As you can see, the chain lift is quite fast. The cars release every 15 seconds, I believe, and that is because of the block where the overbank is. Is to make sure that the spacing is right for that. Which I think actually 15 seconds is about what you would get on these rides anyway. I know that at Chesington and at Alton Towers, the cars continuously move through the station, and I kind of wish that you could make a roller coaster on this game that has that as well. So I think that would be quite cool. Right, here we go, big drop. The spinning is unlocked, down we go, up and over. Yeah, that looks cool. That looks very cool. And then rising up into the helix. A little bit jittery on that section there, but not too bad. Manageable, I think is the word that we can use. And then down into the sweep, over the airtime, down into the rising helix, through the next break, and then into my little favourite section. This is the section that I rebuilt the most times. I think 4 times we rebuilt this little section here, because at one point it was a little bit too long. But I really like how it works now with those little overbanks. I think that's really cool. And then this final little section. Again, I can go through this ride and tell you what each bit's inspired by. So the little first pre-drop bit, that's inspired by Spinball Whizzer. This big drop here is inspired by Dragon's Fury, as is the overbank. But, I mean, as I say, I've only ridden 2 spinning coasters, so all of the inspiration mostly comes from them. The helixes are also inspired mostly by Spinball, because I must admit, Dragon's Fury doesn't have... It has that one big helix towards the second lift hill, but that's about it, really. There's no other helixes apart from that. This little section here, if you ride Spinball or Alton, you'll know that it's got 2 overbanks. It's got one directly underneath the other. Now, really, they both go this way round. But in this case, obviously I couldn't do that. So I decided to build one this way and one, the big one above it, going the other way. And this is important because the main path to the ride is going to come through here and underneath, or over, probably over actually, this this little pre-lift section here. This overbank is important because the exit path goes underneath that. So again, it's like another near-miss moment, shall we say. And then this bit here, the double drop, this is kind of inspired by, at the end of Dragon's Furies, there's that little section where the car rises up, levels out, and then rises up again. Again, I couldn't really do that because I didn't have the momentum. That's hard to say for some reason. So I decided to do the opposite. I decided to go down, up, down instead. So it's, again, you get a little bit of airtime on this section, which I think is kind of cool. And then you've got this gentle meandering. Again, this bit was rebuilt about 3 times as well to try and make it work. It's not the best ending to a ride I've ever built, but it works. That's the main thing. So with that in mind, I have already saved it as a blueprint, but I will save it again just in case. There we go, because the next thing I'm going to do is demolish it. We don't need it at this point. What we do need to do though is start theming this. So whilst we're going to be theming this little section of the ride here first, I'm going to talk to you guys about the first topic of today's episode, which is the plans for global ventures. Big one. We're starting big. What do I mean by that? Well, the park as a whole, because I kind of kept it under wraps so far, and I don't really know why. I've sort of treated it like a covert military operation for some unknown reason. I do get quite protective of my projects, because I do know that putting videos on the internet, it can be quite a hostile environment sometimes. People do like to borrow ideas from others, shall we say. It's something that I've done myself in many cases, although I always like to put my own spin on it. I will never put something out there that is directly copied from someone else. I still feel bad about having a volcano as my centerpiece. It's one of the reasons why I keep saying we're going to have to make it work, because I don't really want it, but it's the only thing I could think of that fitted in with the theme, that could also be a good focal point for the park. So I've got the story of volcanoes make the world, therefore it's a volcano. It signifies, I think I called it the volcano of life, didn't I? We'll have to make it work, basically. It's either that or rebuild this entire section of coaster again, and I really don't want to do that at this stage. Maybe in the future we will. But I mean, it's quite a nice looking volcano, to be fair. It's not terrible, is it? Something I do want to do is just put some water in the top. It's a dormant volcano. It's never going to erupt. It's not real, for a start. So yeah, the plans for global ventures. As you know, we're going to have 5. Hang on. 6. We have 6 themed lands to start with, and we will add more in as and when we need to, essentially. For those of you that can't remember, and I'm nearly one of them, the 6 themed areas, this is currently called Vibes of the Bahamas, although that's another conversation point that we'll get onto a little bit later in the episode. We've also got Heart of the Forest, which is going to be the 3rd area that we start working on. I'm just checking my to-do list to make sure that I'm doing things in the right order. City of the Future, which is going to be the 2nd area that we're working on. That's the one that I'm kind of looking forward to doing, because this is kind of like rustic, old-fashioned type buildings. It's a fort and a castle and things like that. Whereas City of the Future is going to be cityscape, modern, futuristic, believe it or not, and just sort of the binary opposite of this. And then Heart of the Forest, which is going to be set in old-time England. We kind of go back to old rustic style buildings again. So it's kind of cool that we get a bit of a variation. I think that's very important when you're building theme parks. Is you do want to have some variation in your designs. You don't want to do the same thing over and over again. Not having a dig at any park in particular, because not many actually do that. There is a lot of variation, especially in modern times. I think the Coaster Wars are a big part of that as well. The fact that so many different theme parks are always competing to try and be the best. I think that's healthy for the industry in many ways. It's one of the things I like about it is it's not like gaming where rival companies are constantly having digs at one another. It's actually the opposite of that. Most of the time they're complementing one another. So it's a very strange rivalry. Like if you look at Disney and Universal, both have parks in California, both have parks in Florida. They are rivals, but they don't do smear campaigns. They don't say, "Oh, come to us, we're better," or anything like that. They complement each other very nicely. I think that's something that a lot of people should take note of. Anyway, what was I talking about? The themed areas, that's right. Valley of the Nile, the other one that I've already mentioned. That's going to be the probably 4th area that's going to be built. I haven't quite got to that part of the to-do list yet, so that one's a little up in the air. Then we have number 5, which is going to be Legend of the Frontier. Again, I'm forgetting my names. That's not good. Legend of the Frontier is going to be number 5. That's going to be, as the name suggests, a Western themed area. set in old-time America, probably around the same time that Red Dead Redemption's set, actually. Birth of the modern era is going to be a theme of the land. Obviously, it's going to be a railway station there, the Somerset Railroad, which is in a very dormant state at the moment, unfortunately, because it's just got nowhere to go at the moment, so there's no point in actually building it. And then the final area is the Mayan themed area. It was going to be the Amazon themed area. It could still end up being the Amazon themed area. At this point in time, though, there isn't that much I can do in the way of Amazon theming. Therefore, it doesn't really feel like it's going to work if I try and build an Amazon themed area when there isn't any Amazon themed scenery. It seems a bit pointless. But again, who knows? One thing I lack, which I think is kind of crucial for this game in some cases, is the ability to improvise with what is available. Because I know that I've seen loads of really, really good buildings that use, I don't know, let's say a western piece of scenery, but it ends up being added to a medieval style castle. And it really, really works. And that's something that I just don't have the ability to do for some reason. I don't know why. It's just not really in my repertoire. I consider myself to be quite a creative person. It's not like it's a lack of creativity, it's just a lack of know-how, I suppose. I'm very inexperienced when it comes to things like this. I mean, you can see here I'm carefully placing things and looking at them from different angles. So I always like to make sure that it looks good from every angle and not just one or two. Because it's always very disappointing if you build something and go, oh yeah, that looks good, and then you turn around and it looks awful from a different angle. You don't want to do that. I'm also being careful not to place too many rocks inside this tunnel, because I have decided, mostly to save time, to be fair, but this ride is not going to have rock work in the tunnels, because it's just going to take too long to do. It also means that to put the rock work in the tunnels going under the water, especially, and going into the volcano, it's going to have to require a lot of terraforming, and I've got that volcano in a position where I do actually like the volcano. I don't like the idea behind it or anything like that, but I like the design of it. So I really want to avoid having to go through and redoing that if at all possible. So I'll put rock work going up to the tunnel, kind of like that, but from there onwards it's not going to be yeah, it's not going to have much more added to it than that. Right, so that's the first topic out of the way, the areas of global ventures. The plan is to build them, sort of build half of one and then go away, do something else for, again, variety's sake, and then coming back a little bit later and building some more. I think that would work best. See, I'm also trying to put some variance into this section of the ride as well. So this is like, as it's the beginning of the ride, you're not fully, especially in this area, you're not fully in the tropical bit. So I'm trying to sort of shake it up a little, put as much variety and variance into it as I can. And I know they mean the same thing before anyone tells me. I have noticed there's a lot of people in the comments who mean well, but come across very patronizing. And I guess that's the internet. You know, people do that. But, especially when it comes to games like OpenTTD. I know for a fact that there are people who watch my videos who weren't even born when I started playing the original Transport Tycoon. So it makes me laugh in many ways when they're trying to teach me how to use, well, basically how to play the game. Trying to teach me how to play the game, telling me what buttons do. I know what they do, I just don't use them because they're not fitting with what I want to do. And it'll be the same with this. I know how to play this game. Like, control-wise, I know how to play this game. Design-wise, I've already admitted that I'm lacking. But I know how to play the game, like, I know what each button does. Sometimes I might forget, and you'll hear me say, oh, what does this do again? Or how do I do this? That's fine. In that case, let me know, because I'm asking a direct question. But if I'm perhaps doing something that isn't to your liking, You don't have to be patronising about it in the comments. I don't know why I'm choosing now to complain about that. It's not even in this series where it's happening. But there you go. It's just a throwaway comment. That chances are I do know what I'm doing. And again, my process with doing this might be very slow, and it might not be to what people want me to do. But I can't change that necessarily. I build the way I like to build. It gets results. I'm trying to design this area to look like this area. That's my key strategy right now. Should we go back to topics? That's probably a good idea, isn't it? Let's stop moaning and go back to topics. Whilst I try and find a rock that fits with what I'm trying to do here. Not that. Yeah, I like that. That looks awesome. I like the rock to, or the track to look like it's built into the rock face. Kind of like the rocks existed first and it blasted away and the track was placed in the gap. That's the illusion that I'm going for. Something a bit like that. I think that looks cool. So yeah, second topic is going to be the ride roster for Vibes. So this is Vibes of the Bahamas, it's currently called. Although one of the other bits I've put on this as well is whether we're going to keep this name as Vibes of the Bahamas. Because to my knowledge, there are no volcanoes in the Bahamas, or no active volcanoes, that sort of well-known ones. So it doesn't really make sense to have this ride, which is in the Bahamas themed area, interacting with a volcano. That kind of just doesn't sound right, does it? So there's a very good chance that this area could be renamed still. Even when I was first planning these areas, like 4 or 5 years ago, Bahamas was the last one I came to, and even then I said I don't really like this name. It was just there to make up the numbers, let's say, because I had one more area that I wanted to build, and so I threw out the idea of, oh, let's just do. Originally it was going to be something of the Caribbean, but as I said a couple of episodes ago, that's already been done, and done quite well. So there was no point in doing that. So then it was a case of come up with something else, and the thing that I came up with was, well, Bahamas. It's very similar to the idea of the Caribbean. It's very similar geographically speaking as well. So logically it made sense. But as I say, volcano-wise, it doesn't really make sense. So I think in that respect, some rethinking might have to be done. But I do have a ride roster. It's not a very big one, and I think you've actually seen the rides already. It's this and a pirate ship with a or a swinging ship, I should say, because it's not going to be pirate themed at all. But they're going to be the two sort of main rides in the area. There might be other ones. There are some other rides that are available on this game that weren't available on Roller Coaster Tycoon when I first planned this park, that I could use instead, or as well. I think as well would probably work better. Yeah, I'm starting to like the look of this area now. It warms on me. I build something and I hate it, and then the more I look at it, the more I start thinking, actually, it's not that bad. It does get better with time. I keep interrupting myself as well. So yeah, the ride roster for Vibes. We've got this ride, which was originally called Voodoo when it was a Bahamas themed area. It's now called Raid of the Fort. We've also got Shipwreck, which is the swinging ship, which, you know, speaks for itself really. Plot of the ride, you're riding a shipwreck. Cursed, maybe. Not the most. I mean, again, that's kind of been done to death, the idea of a cursed pirate ship. So I don't want to bore people with ride plots that have been way overdone. Oh, I like that. That's different. I will have to move it slightly. No, select the tree. There we go. We'll have to move it slightly so that those leaves aren't interfering with the cars as they pass by. I think that's just about okay. So this little section here I'm quite happy with now. The rest of this area, it will all be built up over time. But I kind of want to focus on this area because this area kind of invades into the forest themed area. So I want to put different types of trees in this bit. Deciduous. Is that what I want? Yeah, oak trees and stuff like that. So what I actually want to do is close that, to get rid of these. They kind of look okay, but they're not brilliant. What I really want is a huge oak tree. There we go. Again, just making sure that the trains won't collide with the branches, and I think actually this tree's a little too big for that. Might have to scale it down, something like this. And here I'm going to build up a rock wall, I was going to say, but none of these really seem big enough. This one perhaps. So I was going to build up a huge rock wall to hide this, but it might just be easier to lift the terrain up. So I'll do something like this. And then put some rocks at the back. So I would quite like to have like natural barriers between each area. Not quite like mountain tunnel kind of thing, because that really wouldn't work. But the area is called Somerset Hills, or the park, the resort, I should say. It's called Somerset Hills. The park itself is only called Global Ventures, but it makes sense then if it's called Somerset Hills to actually have some hills. So we'll be doing that. Put some rocks in underneath the track here. If I line the wall first and then do the rest after. I like that shape. That's quite good. Then we got these huge ones. If I put one there, like that. So yeah, the theming of this area. I'd like some suggestions, really, from you guys, because as I keep saying, my creativity is limiting at times, and I'm not afraid to admit that either. It does mean that sometimes I get stumped. I don't have any ideas. So I'd appreciate it if people pitched in. I'm going to do what I've done with OpenTTD and create a ideas sheet on Google Docs so people can suggest their ideas that way. It makes it a lot easier for me to read that than to have to go through individual comments on YouTube, which, you know, I'm sure anyone could agree with. Sometimes sifting through the comment section, I mean, it's not that hard with me because I don't have that many comments per video, but it's kind of future proofing as well. So, you know, set up a system now, and if it works in 6 years' time, keep doing it. That kind of thing. Let's put a nice little poplar tree there. That's leaning. Why is that leaning? This game does do strange things sometimes. But yeah, I think we're done with that topic. Retheming the area, or renaming the area. It's kind of already been rethemed, subliminally speaking. It's just renaming it now to match the theme. So something tropical would be nice. I mean, it doesn't have to be Caribbean, doesn't have to be Bahamas or anything like that, but something tropical, something, you know, where maybe not this little section I'm building now, because this is designed to fit in with Heart of the Forest, if anything, which is going to be built directly behind this hill. But something that fits in with the other sort of trees and bushes that we've got going on, palm trees, stuff like that. That'd be cool. Right, next topic. The next topic is block sectioning coasters. Ah, yes. Ah, yes. So there was me saying that I didn't want to moan too much in this video, but I'm about to do something which I suppose could be seen as a bit like moaning. It's critiquing, I would say. So as you know, I watch a lot of videos. I talk about it a lot. I probably watch more YouTube videos than I should, really, considering I'm supposed to be making my own, but what can I say? I enjoy watching other people's work as well. It's where I get some of my inspiration from. But because I do that, I see a lot of mistakes that people make in this game in particular. And one of those mistakes that really, really irks me is people don't block section their roller coasters. And I think one of the reasons I'm annoyed by this is the fact that the game allows you to not block section your coasters. Like, what the hell is that all about? For those of you that will remember, the Smiler at Alton Towers had an incident a couple of years ago where one car was released when it shouldn't have been, went round the track as normal, and I think it was going at about 40 miles an hour, collided with an empty car that had valleyed on the track, and some people, I think it was 2 people, were seriously injured, had to have amputations done, which is very unfortunate. And they found the cause of what caused the crash. We won't go into that too much because it was human error, unfortunately. But that highlighted for me the sort of safety of roller coasters, why they're built the way they are, why they go through rigorous testing procedures, why sometimes rides don't open. If you go to a theme park and the ride isn't open, it's not necessarily broken, but it means that it hasn't passed the safety checks for the day. And that's important. It's for your safety. They're not doing it to annoy you or anything like that. It's for your safety. Every ride is checked vigorously every single day before it's allowed to open. That's why some rides open later than others in the park as well. It's because they have to go through more extensive testing. The Smiler is one of those, and it's been plagued with problems since it was built. And again, it's very unfortunate. But again, most people might not know this. The Smiler is actually a prototype. That that type of ride hasn't existed before the Smiler. Now it's been done and redone all over the world, but before that, it hadn't been done before. So it was brand new, never been tested. That's why a lot of things were wrong with it. Now, things like track design, that shouldn't be an issue because, that type of track has been built many times before. It's part of the Eurofighter model. If anyone's been on saw the ride, it's the same type of track as that. What's different though is the fact that the cars are bigger and they're heavier, and the track couldn't withstand that, which is why there was things like bolts falling from the track, and the ride quality as well is something that I didn't particularly enjoy when I rode the Smiler. And it's something that I've seen a lot of people have been discussing, and that's because it's new. I don't think the designers were expecting that much difference when they actually designed the ride and built the ride. But as I say, what that highlighted for me was safety, and how safety is always paramount. Safety should always come first. So that's why I get annoyed when I watch other people play Planet Coaster and they build these really, really nice roller coasters, but they ruin it for me by not building block sections. And I don't know why people don't do that. It's not like it's a challenging part of the game. It's literally putting block breaks in your ride, which means that, for realism's sake, I do watch a series where someone talks constantly about the importance of theming and the importance of realism, and then they build a ride where they haven't block sectioned it. And why? Doesn't, like, you can put as much theming into your ride as you like. If you don't block section it, it's not realistic, and it ruins the ride, for me at least. I imagine there's other people out there that don't really mind, but for me personally, as a theme park enthusiast, and especially a roller coaster enthusiast, it bugs me to hell when people don't block break or block section their roller coasters. I just don't get why you wouldn't do it, if you then talk about realism in your ride. So for example, this ride, Raid of the Fort, does it actually tell you how many blocks there are? I don't think it does, which is a bit of a shame. But I think there used to be a block section directly after the station. There isn't anymore, but each lift hill counts as a block, so that's 3. And then this lift hill has a block section just before it, and then there's a block section at the start of the dark ride, there's a block section in the middle, and then there's a block section outside the station. So that's 4 additional, is it? 1, 2, 3, excuse me, got hiccups. 4, plus the 3 lift hills, so there's 7 blocks on this ride. And it's designed so that there's a sort of 2 blocks between each train, so that there's no hold up when you're actually going round. And I think that works best for the ride. It means you don't have to stop. What that also means is I can say that this is a realistic roller coaster. Cost wise is the only bit where I might say it probably won't be built in real life, but apart from that, everything else about it is realistic. So very recently I was watching a video of someone playing this game, and they were building a launched roller coaster, and I couldn't watch the rest of the video after this particular bit, because he built the station, and he built a very long station, and I thought, oh, he must be running really long trains on this launched coaster. That's not very realistic, was the first thing I said. And then he did the horrible thing. He went into the trains list and made 4 trains in a single station with no block breaks, and at that point I had to turn the video off, because I just thought, I cannot watch this. It's almost like an OCD where I cannot watch a roller coaster be built like that. It just, I don't know, I can't explain it even. It's just, it doesn't feel right. So in terms of the ride, it looked like it was going to be a really good roller coaster. It's just unfortunate that that one little thing meant I couldn't watch it be built. If you're going to build roller coasters on this game, block section them. That's all I'm saying. Block section them. It might take out some of the speed of your ride, and that's unfortunate, but it does that in real life too. Something you have to remember. That's why some rides like the Swarm is a ride that I definitely feel is way too short, considering how big the first drop is and how quick the brakes come once you go down that first drop. I think the ride's way too short, and I also think Saw the Ride is way too short as well, although the ride quality on it now, when I actually do go on it, I can't get off it quick enough at the end, which again is quite unfortunate, considering it's not that old a ride. It's not even 10 years old yet. It's only 8 years old, Saw the Ride. 2009 it opened, and yet it feels like a really old ride. It feels worse than Colossus, and Colossus is 16 years old this year. Very old ride. But yeah, that ruins the immersion for me when I watch these videos. It's when I see, like you see these videos on social media of this will ruin your day, and it's like things being done improperly. Like, trying to think of a good example off the top of my head. I can't really think of any, but it's ones where you just watch it and you go, oh no, what's he doing that for? And that's exactly how I felt when I watched this roller coaster being built. I was almost like hiding behind my screen. It's like, how is he doing this? And this is someone who is a theme park enthusiast. They go to lots of theme parks around the world, and they sort of review theme park rides around the world. And it all feels very empty to me when I see someone review a theme park ride, and then they have an opportunity to build one themselves on a game, and they do it wrong. And yeah, I use that word. They do it wrong. It's not how you build them. By that point, I don't care about the layout of your ride. I don't care if it's the best ride you've ever built in your life. If it doesn't have block sections, I'm not interested, because it won't be very good. That's all I'm saying about that. But whilst I've been rattling on about that, we've actually done pretty decent job. This bit, again, I like the theming. That's the thing. I like the theming. I don't like the fact that it sort of goes out of the theming that we're going for, but it has to, because the ride crosses the path. Once it crosses the path, you're in a different area, so it has to match the theming of that area. It's kind of like during the old days of Roller Coaster Tycoon 2. Extreme Hills, I think it was called, or Extreme Heights. The theme park where you had no money. Obviously, because you had no money, I used to play that park to death. Always on that park, always failing as well, because my park rating would drop below the required amount. But that's by the by. I always used to build big giga coasters. I always used to build them so that they crossed into multiple different areas of the park. And even then, I tried to use the scenery that they had available to make a good themed park. But because of that, sacrifices had to be made. So with this ride, because it went through lots of different areas, I had to do lots of different themes for the same ride. And so eventually you end up with this ride going through different mishmashes of theming, and the track colour would be changed to match the theming of the area, and it would just, overall it would look like some big congealed mess of a ride. But it had good ratings, and that's what you needed to, you know, pass the park. So I never sort of let that bug me. But this time round, because I'm going for realism as much as I can with this park, so that does become a big part of it, is trying to make it as realistic as possible. I'm thinking of building a restaurant here, actually, looking at it. It's got like good real estate space, or a shop. So I'll leave that bit blank for now. So yeah, I mean this ride crosses into two themed areas, therefore it has to be themed for those two different areas, even if it sort of sacrifices the theme of the first area. It's not terrible, it's not the worst that's ever happened. And because this is supposed to be a theme park based in England, and Heart of the Forest is also based in England, so you are going to get English trees sort of around the edge of this area anyway. So that is part of it. So if you keep that in your mind when you look at it, it sort of makes up for it, or it at least explains it. That's what I'm going for, is the explanation of why it looks like it looks. Right, let's move this to just there. So again, I like the idea of the track just passing over the top of the rockwork. That looks awesome when that works out. Like that. I really like it on the last portion of the ride, where it goes around those two banked curves, and the track goes right up against the rock. That looks really, really cool. Alright, let's stick that rock in there like that. That rock in there like that. And by the way, if you know, I'm talking about other people's videos and how it's unrealistic. If anyone thinks that my videos are unrealistic, I would like to know what I can do to improve that, because I'm not saying that I'm perfect by any stretch. I know I'm not. This is one big learning curve for me, which is why I keep saying we'll make it work, because I know at some point in the future I will get better at this game, and I will come back and I will fix these mistakes. And I am calling them mistakes because I genuinely think that they are mistakes. Like this whole first section of the ride over here is a mistake as far as I'm concerned. It doesn't work, it doesn't look particularly nice. I'm not 100% happy, I'm not even 5% happy with it, to be honest. So yeah, if you guys want to criticize my building, go for it. I'm not going to hide from it. I know that it's not perfect. What I'm really looking for is advice on how to make it better. I'd appreciate that a lot. How are we doing for time? 49 minutes. That's pretty good, actually. I thought this video might go on for over an hour, but it looks like we might finish within time, which is always nice. I'll try and cover up these support structures as well. So the way I'm viewing these rocks here is, I mean, all these rocks are fake, we know that, but these ones in particular are going to be like hollow on the inside, and they've just been built around the support. So the support still sticks into the ground, it's still got that big square base, but the rock's been put there to hide it. So the support actually goes into a rock rather than into a big concrete square. And I think overall this looks a lot more impressive. I particularly like the entrance to the tunnel. I think that looks quite nice. Again, there's some spaces here where rocks need to go, and I will fill them in. Let's use the big one for this. I always find that's my go-to. If I'm struggling to fill a space, just go for a big rock. In fact, this one will probably work better. So let's undo that one. We'll put that one in instead. Yeah, that looks nice. And then over here, we'll use the bigger of the two again. Move it into position and lower it down like so. And then the same with this one here. Alright, these ones over here I'm not too bothered about because no one's really going to see them. This pathway here is going to head over to Shipwrecked, which I'm still deciding whether it should be built on the island or not. If I don't build it on the island, my next best place to put it is here. So if I lift it up to the right level, spin it round, like that, and then just put some rock work underneath it to make it look a little bit nicer. I kind of like the way that this would interact. I think actually it needs to be moved. I'd like to move it a little bit closer to the roller coaster so you get that real sense of it's going to collide even though it's not. I also wish you could sort of bury it in the ground a bit more. Because I mean that's a gap. That's not sitting at ground level at all. So unless there's a raised bit of land somewhere, maybe this section here actually, it's not great. But again, you can't see it from over here. Well, you can see just the outside edge of it, and that's kind of the point. The area is designed to be hidden from the entrance, so you don't actually see this bit until you get right up close. So what have we got here? Sequence, swing, swing, swing. As opposed to what? I'm going to move this swing to the bottom. Oh, there we go. Yeah, let's do 5 swings instead of the rudimentary 4. Operations, half load, blah blah blah. Won't worry about priority pass, I don't think. Have it serviced every 10 minutes. That's pretty good. It's not terrible. Again, I wish we could move it a little bit closer. Something which I actually like with the recent update is, look, the tyres actually spin on the ride now. And these things go up and down when they're supposed to. And if I come over here, these tyres also spin. They didn't used to until the spring update, and now they do. I think that's really great. The next thing, though, is the brakes need to function, because they don't yet. This is actually quite cool. I like the way it swings. So this might be the location of Shipwreck. And it's just a case of where do you put the entrance, where do you put the exit. Again, I might put the entrance like right the way over here. I know that really the entrance and exit works best when you put it on this bit here, but I don't really want them right next to each other. I want the exit on this section, but I kind of want the entrance hidden away at the back, and then the queue path will wrap itself around. There's every chance that this whole thing's going to be moved still. How is this doing ratings wise now? Still not great. And again, I think that's a little bit harsh. I'm guessing the train's going up a lift hill right now, or it's probably going through the dark ride section, thinking about it. But there we go, guys. So in terms of the to-do list, we didn't really get that much onto the island. The island itself, like this section here, I'm probably going to theme this off camera because I still don't 100% know what I'm going to do with it. This swinging ship, I do like it here, but I think it needs to be repositioned slightly. So the big thing to do is flatten the land a little bit more. Sort of take it right the way down to water level. And again, I should probably do this off camera, but I'm going to do a little bit of it now. Just so you guys get a feel for what it is I'm actually aiming for. So I want it to be level with this. So it's just about out of the water. Right, literally, I mean here you can see even the water kind of overlaps it a little bit. But that's fine. That's not a problem. It's very shiny actually. I think that's just underneath the water. Looking at it. So now if I try and build this, again we'll spin around and we'll lift her up a little bit more. Okay, something's not right here. What's going on? Yeah, it's this bit here now. Just going to tickle this bit down a little. A smidge. There we go. And this section here as well. Let's have a look at what others. This is a Ferris wheel, and it's an open Ferris wheel. Now this I can imagine going in the city area and a roller coaster going through the middle of it, because that does actually happen in Japan, and City of the Future is based in Japan. As you know, every one of these is set to a country, and futuristic one. I just feel like Japan itself is a very future based country. They're always pushing technology to its limit. So I think City of the Future, it works well for a Japanese theme. And they do have a Ferris wheel in Japan with a roller coaster going through the middle of it, so it makes sense to replicate that design. There. That looks a little bit better. And if I put the entrance sort of back here, the exit will go directly in front like that. That needs to be pulled up again because that is going to annoy me otherwise. I can see why that bit was where it was now. I can lift all this section up as well because it matches the rock work then. There we go. Smooth this section a little bit, smooth this section a little bit. So the path, or the queue for this ride, yeah, wood will do. I'm gonna have it kind of go like this, and I don't like cattle penning in queues, but it is very efficient, and I can see why real life theme parks do it. So we're going to have a little bit of it, I'm afraid. Q. We are going to have a little bit of cattle penning. But the majority of this bit is trying to sneak the path round like this. And then here we'll have a little bit of cattle penning. Sort of a bit of toing and froing. So here it's going to go like this, like this, like this. Like that. And then I should be able to sneak it through this gap here like this. And then again on this section. Try and actually build it a little better than that, shall we? Something like that, and then this way, this way, this way, this way, this way, round like this, round like that, and then I'd say here is where it joins up with the main pathway again, which was this one, I believe. Nope, wasn't that one. It must be this one. There we go. And then the exit path will just come straight out and round like this and join up like that. Again, I'm not saying that's the final design, but it's not too bad, I suppose. This will all be themed, of course. So if I can... Nope. Don't want that. So this is Shipwreck. Every 10 minutes. And yeah, I suppose that's where that lives now. I can lower this down a little bit, I guess. Just want to check when the train enters the tunnel that it doesn't go all splashy on me. Also want to take this down a little. No splash. That's good. So this is the main sort of lake orbital path, which is going to go off down this way. And if I take this down to almost minimum, let's do 5. This is going to be the entrance way to Shipwreck. Just like that. Again, let's take this back a little bit more. All of this area here needs smoothing. It's all a mess. There we go, that should be nicer. It's a little bit nicer. And then connect that up like that. There we go. So it's not terrible. This bit here is a little off. This bit here is a little off. But I live with that. It's not perfect. It'll do. Alright then, guys. So now we've hit an hour. So I am going to end the episode here. So thank you very much for watching. This will be a weekly series now, once a week. It was going to be Tuesdays and Thursdays, but I'm going to have another new series starting on Thursday. So this is going to be going up every Tuesday. Again, you know, any feedback or anything like that would be greatly appreciated. It can be negative, just don't be, you know, too negative, because there's no need for that. Constructive criticism is my preference for that, really. But yeah, that'll do for this episode, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and of course if you enjoyed the series. Drop some comments down below, as I said. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button. If you have already subscribed to the channel, thank you guys for your continued support. And until next time, I will see you soon.